location. I don't want to charge people to come, but I'm going to put a basket in the back of the room, and anybody who wants to donate will be giving to the Humane Society. So I did that in Naples when I was doing something similar. And the first time I went to give them the money, I took my friend with me and I told him, please don't let me get a dog. So you know the rest of the story. I went home with a dog and I never regretted it. She was the sweetest thing. Of course, you know, dogs are so good for us. So people are still coming in. I want to greet the Facebook family. I hope there are lots of you out there. And I want to meet you. Next month, we're going to be meeting, the live part will be at the Unity Church. And I'm looking forward to meeting our Facebook people there one day. But if you can't, you can't. Just watch on TV or whatever your preferred medium. So today's topic is spring cleaning for the body. So here it is. It's been spring in Florida for about 4 days, and it will be spring for another 3 or 4 days. And then it's going to be summer, right? So get on the stick and let's talk about this because, so when we talk about cleaning, we have to recognize that we're surrounded by toxic things. And it's not just chemicals, as we'll get into, but so many things that are invisible or that are deep in our psyche that can toxify us as well. So we'll certainly talk about the chemical toxins and all of that stuff because that's where everybody's going today. But you know, I like to expand the vision. And did I do something bad? Okay. And talk about things that nobody else talks about. And then at the end, I'm going to show you again the painting that I showed you last week. Only now I have copies for promulgation. So anyway, we'll talk about that at the end. And okay, so let's talk about the scope of the problem. So first of all, we know that there are at least 80,000 chemicals in use today in industrial societies that never existed in nature. Only a few hundred have been tested for safety in humans, or animals for that matter. And then never mind the interactions and, you know, how does it work with your system and how does it work with everything else that you're doing, including medications, which I have to add to the list of toxins. Medicines are toxic, but so is water. So is salt, so is aspirin. Anything can be toxic in high enough amounts. So it's really, it's a fine line that we're drawing here. But when a chemical gets into the body and the body mistakes it for something that it recognizes, then we're in trouble because we're getting a false signal. So our receptors are set up for natural substances, things that our bodies make, things that are made in nature, including plants, including animal tissues, including fungi. So every kingdom is represented, but the kingdom of chemistry is not. So we need to be very, very cautious. So fortunately, we have a resource in the Environmental Working Group. The website is ewg.org. And I have a handout for those of you here that will give you books and resources. So that we can hand out now. Let's just pass it around. I'm sorry, I'm doing the best I can. So beginning with heavy metals. So what are heavy metals? Heavy metals are toxic minerals that substitute for the nutrient minerals that are supposed to be doing the job in our bodies. All of our enzymes, many of our proteins, our working workhorses, require minerals to make them work. Take, for example, hemoglobin. So hemoglobin carries oxygen. And in order to properly carry oxygen, it has to have iron at the heart of it. So if it doesn't have iron, if it has, for example, lead instead, it's not going to do a very good job. And so that's what I mean. Cadmium substitutes for zinc and others. You know, if you look at the way energy is generated in the body, in the mitochondria, you will see that there are many steps around that Krebs cycle where a heavy metal substituting for the natural mineral will impair your energy generating possibilities. So if you have chronic fatigue, if you have joint pains, if you have chronic headaches, chronic anything, one of the potential causes is the accumulation of heavy metals. So why do heavy metals accumulate? Well, because we don't have natural detoxification pathways. They do not occur in nature. You don't find pure lead or pure cadmium or pure mercury in nature. But you find it in industry, and you find it in foods, and you find it in the water, and in your bedding, and in your car, and in all these things have potential to toxify you. So I pulled an article from the internet that says 10 foods with heavy metals you should avoid at all costs. So I want to just interject here. Don't avoid these foods. These foods are good for you. But learn how to detoxify the bad part. Okay, so don't get scared. We know that fish carry mercury. Which fish? The big fish that eat the other fish, because they then concentrate that mercury. So who's eating lots of fish? We are. And all of those fish have potential to have mercury. So we don't want bottom feeder fish. We don't want giant, predatory fish that eat others. We want the little teeny fish, that don't live very long, that can't accumulate too much. So sardines are great. I know you love them. Anchovies, right? Terrific, right? Herring. Okay, so now I've made you all sick. Salmon is also okay.
Oh, thank God.
Yes, exactly. Salmon is also okay, but remember, I'm going to talk a little bit about, I only have 2 hours, so I have a lot to cover, so forgive me for rushing through it, but I think you'll get some help from those references. And for the listening audience, if you call us, we can send you, or we can email you a copy of the references. So the number is 941-404-8030 is the number for Best Medicine, Inc. And we will be happy to email you a reference page for this talk. All right, so then remember, this isn't a death sentence, but there is no one on this planet who is exempt from heavy metal toxicity. Years ago, they showed that even the milk of Laplanders, Lapland women, they live up in the Arctic Circle, is contaminated with mercury. Every ocean in the world is contaminated with mercury. And I might add cadmium and lead and arsenic and all the rest. Okay, so I'll go through quickly. Rice and rice products, arsenic. Although rice is healthy. Quinoa is better, but rice is a problem. Pressure-treated lumber is a problem. Chickens are a problem, depending on what they're being fed. So, it gets into the food chain and then it gets into us. So the really important thing is to learn how to detoxify yourself, because you can't avoid it. Just give it up and try to teach your grandchildren, because I know your kids won't listen to you. Mine certainly don't, but the grandchildren may. So you can have them tune into this talk. All right, number 3, this is shocking to me. Leafy greens. Lead and cadmium in leafy greens, the best things in the world. Kale, spinach, collards, broccoli. Why? Because it's raining down from the sky. Even organic food is contaminated. Yeah, so it helps to wash, but really the problem is it's already been taken into the plant. And so you can't scrub that off. All right, so leafy greens, you still need to eat them, but detox. So detox on a regular basis, depending on your symptoms, on your own physiology. You know if you're a chemically sensitive person or not. And many of you are, or you wouldn't be here. You're trying to figure out what's wrong with you. And this is potentially one of the underlying factors. So here we go. Fruit juices, lead and arsenic, what you give your babies. Fruit juices can be contaminated with those. Not to mention fructose and other things, but we're just talking heavy metals at the moment. Here's one that's going to make you cry. I know it will. Chocolate. Chocolate. Lead and cadmium. Chocolate. So why do women love chocolate so much? Because they need the hormone that chocolate looks like, and that hormone is progesterone. So that's out of the range of this talk, but you need to know that. If you need your chocolate at night, try putting a dab of over-the-counter progesterone cream instead and see what happens. Use it every single day. It's over-the-counter. It's safe. It's not going to cause cancer or brain damage or what have you. And just a moment. And it will make all the difference to your peace of mind, your bone density, and your brain function. So progesterone is a really good thing. Pat, do you want to ask something?
Take it every day, or do you need to do 3 weeks?
Every day,
Okay.
every day. It's very, very safe. It's not the way that you did it when you were menstruating, but you're not menstruating anymore. So it's okay to take it every day. And there's no way you're going to get pregnant, and there's no way you're going to get cancer from that. But chocolate might give you cancer.
Wow.
Yeah, so watch out.
And be careful where you source everything from, is really what I hear you saying.
Yeah, and often you can't know, but you can try. Root vegetables, same reason, they're grown in contaminated soil. So if you have a backyard, how about putting in some potatoes? How about putting in some carrots? Your soil should be tested. You can take it somewhere to have it tested. I think the agriculture department may do that for you. But, our little victory gardens are now survival efforts. And it makes sense. And it's good for your health to do the gardening and be outdoors and moving around, and schlepping heavy bags of soil or whatever. And just, participating in this earthly experiment. Okay, here we go. Alcoholic beverages can have almost any kind of toxin in it. Lead, particularly from the caps on the wine. The wine bottles are covered with lead. You have to tear off and it can get in through the cork. All right, so enough of that. Canned foods, of course. So canned foods are generally lined with BPA plastic so that the food is not in contact with the metal. But that BPA plastic is a toxin that affects your hormone receptors. So I don't like cans for that reason, although they are a survival thing. If you can use glass to package food, that's better, or ceramic. But if you have to, you do that. Okay. Tea leaf products. Teas. Again, anything that you do a lot is more of a hazard to you than something you do only occasionally. So one of my favorite ways of mitigating is to tell my patients, variety protects you. Don't always use the same brands. Don't always use the same flavors. Make your teas from Whole Foods if you can. Grow your ginger in your backyard. Dig it up and make ginger tea from that. So just things to think about. And finally, baked goods. And baked goods can have heavy metals in them from the grains that were used in it, from the processing, and from the tins that they're baked in. Baked goods also currently, and they used to contain iodine as a preservative, and now they've changed that out to bromine, and bromine is toxic. So those are the 10 foods that are supposedly highest in heavy metals. Pesticides, plastics, they can certainly toxify and result in serious allergic or even autoimmune disorders. So if you live on a golf course, find out when they're going to be doing their spraying and get out of town. Go stay with somebody else. I had a friend who was very chemically sensitive, and she was sick a lot for one season, and she couldn't understand it. And we narrowed it down to something at home. She was meticulous about keeping things clean, but her neighbor, who had rose bushes that were right under my friend's bedroom window, was constantly spraying them with pesticide and fertilizer. So once she found that out, she talked to the neighbor. She moved to a different side of the house. She could mitigate. So I had another friend years ago who started a foundation for male breast cancer because her father died of it. He was an avid golfer. And some golfers, I understand, have a habit of licking their balls before they put them on the tee. And the balls were covered with pesticide. And he got breast cancer. So 1 in 100 breast cancer cases are in men. The other reason that people get breast cancer is lack of iodine. So you may be getting sick of hearing that from me, but this is the simplest thing that you can do to benefit your health. Get some iodine and take it. How much almost doesn't matter. There are so many different opinions. If your kidneys are healthy, you can take 1 a day. You can take probably 3 a day or more. But I always was conservative about it and told people 3 days a week because it's high dose. But I've changed my tune now. I watched a very interesting webinar by my dear friend, Dr. Lindsay Berkson, who has 2 books on your list, and Dr. David Brownstein, who wrote the book on iodine. And I'm now convinced that we need more than we're getting. So 1 a day is fine. So now I've said it, I won't say it
You're talking
again
about the
today.
12.5 milligram?
Correct. Yeah. So then we have toxic food. Food, unfortunately, is now being made with seed oils. And seed oils are very, very bad for us. They get damaged, they replace the natural fats in our cell membranes, and then all of a sudden, we can't depolarize those membranes. We can't energize. And that can lead to progressive weakness and fragility. So we think it's normal for aging, but it isn't. It isn't. So watch out for seed oils and food additives. So make sure you can read a food label. What's even better, you don't have to learn how to read the label, is buy the whole food and cook it yourself. And then you only have to deal with what's intrinsic in the food and not what somebody decided to sprinkle on it or mix into it. So then we have polluted and treated water. Our water is not clean, sadly. It's far from it. And not just with heavy metals, but the runoff of all of these chemicals. When you see, a river full of dead fish, there's an upstream problem. And that problem may also translate to us. But remember, we are part of this world. And when we toxify anything, we're toxifying ourselves. So it was, I think, Chief Seattle who said, when you defecate in your own bed, you're going to drown in your own shit. Or words to that effect. He said it more poetically. But, we are not separate from nature. We're totally part of it. And it's so, so, so important that we take care of it. I heard on the radio today that Pasco County is now putting plastic barricades across all the streams that the water can get through, but not the plastic. So they're going to be emptying those and preventing all that plastic from winding up in the Gulf. So that's a good thing. Plastic is now contaminating the oceans. Microplastics, tiny. You know how plastic, when it gets old, it crumbles. But it never denatures. It stays plastic. And so all of us here today have microplastics circulating in our blood. And so do our kids and grandkids. So sadly. So then, building materials and new car smell and fire retardants and everything. Everything is now made from petroleum chemicals or heavy metals or things that are bad for us. And then, of course, water damage will lead to mold growth. You may or may not recognize it. You may carry mold in your body as well as your home. You can remediate your home, but you need to also think about where mold might have taken up residence in your body. And I believe, as a former ENT, the sinuses are where it tends to go. And I've found black hairballs in people's sinuses of Aspergillus mold. And those were pretty sick people. So it's not common, but it happens. So if you have chronic sinusitis, a good way to deal with it is to get a nebulizer, which with a mask that goes over your face that produces a cool mist. And in that nebulizer reservoir, put something that kills microorganisms, that doesn't kill you, and that doesn't kill your gut microbiome. So I like hydrogen peroxide diluted, I like colloidal silver, and I like iodine, a drop or two in the water. So they kill on contact. And that's a great way to keep from getting colds, to treat yourself every night when you've been out and about. And it takes 2 or 3 days for a cold to take hold, or COVID. And you can kill most of it and prevent the infection if you nebulize. So that's a cheap and easy way to take care of yourself in this climate. So any questions so far? Yes.
I have a question about with canned foods, which I don't use a lot of, but if it says BPA free, is that still not great?
So if it says BPA free is a can, okay. No, it's probably got BPB or BPC or some other thing. they're just, you know, evading
Making it sound like it's
the spirit of the law by following the letter. So fresh foods are much better. Frozen foods are next. And then glass, you know, or pickled foods. But canned are dicey. I keep them because you never know, you know, a hurricane or whatever. I've got sardines in the pantry that probably will feed me and the dogs for a year. And I won't worry about the contamination at that point. Lisa.
The rice that you mentioned has arsenic in it. Is that because they use that to clean the rice, or how does that happen?
I think it's in the soil. It has an affinity for certain nutrients, and it thinks arsenic is one of those nutrients.
But
In
also
the back.
Don't ever make a great big giant batch of rice and then save it and eat it the second and third day. Make your rice fresh because it has its own particular kind of mold. It grows very quickly. Make it the day you need it.
Yes.
So in the nebulizer, you said to use those ingredients. Can you also use minute amounts in like a neti pot?
Can you use a neti pot instead of a nebulizer? Yes, of course, certainly. The nebulizer stays in contact longer is the thing, and it gets into all the nooks and crannies. So yeah, of course, I think neti pot would work too. The saline spray won't work though, because that takes out particulates, but it doesn't kill bacteria or viruses. Yes.
What about in the nebulizer or neti pot, xylitol?
So the question is, will xylitol do it? I don't believe xylitol has antimicrobial properties. I could be wrong, but
Because in dentistry, it's equated with, you know, killing a lot of germs and even
Oh, really?
COVID germs. And
well,
stuff.
that's new to me, so I would not have thought of xylitol.
Dr. McCullough recommends that when you travel, you buy that xylitol.
Yes.
It's called X-Clear
Exactly.
spray,
So great.
and don't go anywhere without
Right.
that. You know, I
So
follow
great.
him.
Yeah, I would use colloidal silver, just because I trust it more. Xylitol is a chemical too. It's a sweetener that for a while we were recommending, but then they found something bad with it. You know, there's always something goes back and forth. You never know what to do. But again, variety protects you. If you're not doing the same foods or the same sweeteners every day, then you're probably more protected. So, okay. So then endogenous toxins, the toxins that are produced within the body. So we can have mouth bacteria that are day and night producing toxins, and you're swallowing them, particularly candida in people who eat sugar. The kids, they'll have a white tongue, they'll have red gums that are inflamed all the time. And these bacteria and fungi and viruses can creep into your circulation. And they have found them in autopsied brains and in heartful bacteria that when you swallow them, they're going to do good things for you. They're going to reseed your gut with helpful bacteria. Same with the sinuses. Remember, they're dripping down into your gut. So really, your gut starts in your head. Okay. Yes, and most inflammatory, chronic inflammatory conditions are producing toxins, but the body's inflammatory response is meant to be just short and sweet and effective. But instead, we're inflamed because of the seed oils, we're inflamed because of the heavy metals, we're inflamed because of the toxins. And so we're inflamed all the time. If you have arthritis, don't throw up your hands and say, oh, well, I'm old. I deserve it somehow. No, it's a sign that something is wrong. So something is making you inflamed. And it could be any of those things. It could be a food allergy. So just, don't just take it as, hey, this is my lot in life. I have to put up with it. No, certainly not true. All right. Okay. So now I just want to say a word. Let's see what time it is. We've got plenty of time. So let's talk about psychic toxins. So we can have, whoops. We can have distractions and we can forgive ourselves and move on.
Everybody get up and dance for 30 seconds. Should we put it on airplane?
Okay, before I move on to that, I do want to say a word about how to detox. So the organs of detoxification, let's talk about that for a minute. The organs of detoxification are what? The liver, the kidneys, the lungs, the skin, and the hair and nails.
Hair?
Hair.
Yeah, hair and nails.
Anything that's growing, particularly rapidly growing, is going to take up nutrients and toxins from the circulation. So a hair analysis can be a way to prove heavy metal exposure. So they had a lock of Beethoven's hair, and it was super high in lead and mercury, because those were the medications of the time. And so it's very likely that his doctors poisoned him. And many other people at the time as well. So that hair was hundreds of years old. And yet it maintained its integrity, and the lab was able to identify those toxins in his hair. So it's not foolproof, because I used to do a lot of hair tests, and I would see a lot of people who had no toxins in their hair. So I learned that these were the sickest people, because they weren't getting rid of any of it. They were keeping it and storing it. And so with them, you have to do a provocation test. You have to give them what I call a chemical magnet to go in there and suck it out of storage. And then it leaves in the urine. You collect urine, you send that to the lab, and then you know what's in there. But you don't know how much. So that's called a chelation challenge test. And it is best done with IVs. So I used to do that. One day I will do that again. But there are places here in Sarasota that do IV chelation. And that to me is one of the most powerful anti-aging tools to benefit your health long term. So even 10 treatments a year for the rest of your life will benefit. Or you can do repeated rounds of oral chelation. So Chelex is a product that I really like. It's got EDTA in it, which is the IV, the same as in the IV, and it takes out everything but mercury. Mercury requires another chelating agent called DMSA, which requires a prescription. So, but you can still do the oral chelation with Chelex and get great benefit from that. Natural products, chlorella, chlorophyll, spirulina, blue-green algae, et cetera, can all be excellent chelating agents, as can bentonite clay and zeolite. Zeolite with an X, I believe. Yeah. Yes,
Do
question.
you prefer questions at your point?
I'm okay with it.
If you're doing spirulina every day, is that generally a good thing, or is the Chelex can take more out?
Okay, so the question is, do you do these things every day, basically? And the answer is no. There's got to be a rhythm to it. There's got to be a balance. So we break down and we build up. We remove and we replace. So when we do these chelating agents, they're also taking out nutrient minerals. So especially the IVs, but even the oral ones. So you want to do them in cycles. So what I like to do is recommend 3 days of the chelation. So maybe you'll take the chelax 3 times a day, or take 3 of them once, and then for 3 days, and then stop for 11 days and go back on your multivitamin that has minerals in it, or a special multi-mineral supplement, or some, other natural product that will replace what you've lost. And then just do that maybe for 10 cycles every year. It's a way to get ahead of it. It's a way to do something for yourself. If you can't find a doctor that can do it with you, a partner in maintaining your excellent health or getting back to excellent health, you can at least do that. So then we talked about the other, the organs of detoxification, and the liver is number 1. Your liver is a chemical factory that's just so elegant and so well put together. The more you know about it, the more you realize how utterly clever it is. And it can even take xeno products that are foreign to the human body, and detoxify them and make them capable of being excreted. So hormones that are used up, hormone mimics, hormone deceptive chemicals, anything, not metals. The metals are a different animal, but the chemicals are processed through the liver. The kidney then will take the now water-soluble chemicals, because the liver's done that, and will excrete them in the urine. The liver will also put a lot of them into the bile. The fat-soluble ones go into the bile. And the bile dumps into your gut. So when your gallbladder is working well, your stool will be a healthy brown color. If your gallbladder doesn't work, or if it's blocked, it's going to be clay colored, and that is abnormal. So that means you may be recycling some of these. Being regular eliminates these toxins regularly. So you definitely want to make sure that you're having a decent bowel movement, at least 1 a day, and without much trouble. So you may have to use magnesium, you may have to use fiber, you may have to use probiotics, or more water, or more exercise, or whatever it takes. But constipation is deadly. And constipation can come from low thyroid function. So back to our iodine again. And magnesium is my favorite laxative. And so that gets your liver cleaned out and your gut cleaned out. But if it's sitting there for days, you're sucking it back in, and you're not doing yourself a favor. So Liver Protect is a product that helps the liver to detoxify toxins. And Susie has these lovely little, they're not handouts, they're just little things to show you what the liver does and what it needs. These are the nutrients that are required. I'll pass it around, you can take a picture. And then on the back is the fat-soluble and the water-soluble versions of the toxins as they come out. So let's pass those around.
Yeah,
And
there's just
count them.
12 of so kind of
Okay,
share.
good. So we want 12 back at the end, but you can fool around with them in the meantime. Yes.
Can you speak a bit more about magnesium, like how to take it, how often?
How to take magnesium. So magnesium will self-regulate. So if you take too much, you get diarrhea. It goes away. It won't hurt you, but it's the way to titrate. So if you don't know how much you need, start low and add more until you get the result that you want. So magnesium, we talked about that in relation to the heart last month because it's important for regulation of rhythm, and so many hundreds of enzyme chemical things that are going on in your body. So Liver Protect, Xeno Protect, and she's got a bunch of other things there. Also, pectin. The pectins absorb toxins. So if someone is mold toxic, they might very well need an absorbent that can hold on to these. They're things like pectin, apple pectin, or citrus pectin, CSM, there's a prescription one, I can't remember the name now. There goes my audience. Sorry, guys. I hope you're not dizzy.
We hope you're all right. You're still alive.
Okay, sorry about that. So, you know, for really sick people, it might be helpful to try some over-the-counter binders, they're called. So clay, bentonite clay, and, oh shoot, CSM, all right. You can't get it without a prescription, so don't worry about it. All right, so the lungs are for excreting carbon dioxide and regulating your acid-base balance along with the kidneys. And that's super important. So you don't want to toxify your lungs because they won't be able to do their job. The skin sheds every single day and night. And if you're smart, you get yourself some rough scrubber and you'll scrub off in the shower or in the bath the dead skin, because when it leaves, it's carrying toxins out with it. Your hair and nails, we talked about that a bit. Hair, it can be efficient or not. So, but it's very, very interesting to look at hair analyses, and they're not expensive. And what I really use them for is to look at the nutrient minerals in the body. So it can show me a B12 deficiency. It can show me a calcium-magnesium imbalance, or sodium-potassium, or various other things. And then occasionally I'll come across the heavy metal that that person was exposed to during the time frame that that hair was growing. So it doesn't mean it's pulling anything out of the body. It's showing you what's been in circulation during the time that that hair was growing. So there's still plenty of toxic burden in the body. Okay, so now let's move on. If there are questions, this is a good time. Oh, you will always have a question.
How
Go
much
ahead.
is an average hair test these days?
How much is an average hair test? It's around $100. It's not a bank breaker, but it's not free. Yeah.
So do they actually break down like what they found in the different parts of the hair? Because it grew at different times of your life?
No.
No.
You're only sending them an inch to an inch and a half of recent growth.
Oh,
You're not sending history. You're sending now.
okay.
So it's hard, you know. With Beethoven, his hair grew hundreds of years ago. But it's a very interesting, and what they do is they burn it and they look at the color spectrum that comes up. So if you remember high school chemistry, when you burn certain chemicals, they go different colors. That's how we know what stars are made of. Yeah.
The Z-Light, I just purchased some powder. Can you take that every day?
I wouldn't take anything every day.
Okay,
You want to toggle back and forth.
so maybe 3 days and,
3 days on, 11 days off.
okay.
Or, you know, there are people that take it every day, but I think they're fanatical. And
Yeah,
What
it's
was
too
the
much.
product that?
Zeolite.
It's a
Oh, zeolite, yes.
zeolite, yeah, it's a powder,
It's a binder.
yeah.
Okay, so then what about psychological toxicity? So I don't know how many of you were here for the first talk, but that was all about levels of consciousness. And there are low levels of consciousness that can hurt the person that lives there. So what I'm talking about is things like anger, victimhood, loneliness, jealousy. These are toxic emotions, and they eat you up. They don't do anything to the person that they're aimed at, but they do harm the person that holds them. It was shown by the Institute of Noetic Sciences that does tremendously wonderful scientific research on these outlying concepts, that people who scored a certain amount in a stress test, certain stresses were given a score, like death of a loved one is 100. That would include your animals. Or divorce might be give you an 80. And, betrayal. And they were added together to give a numerical stress indicator for how much stress a person suffered in a short period of time. And within a year, people who suffered stresses that added up to 300 or more were far more at risk of developing cancer. So your own self-talk and your own, habitual mindset affects your health far more than you know. These are toxic emotions. How do you pull yourself out of it? Well, you may need help doing that. Or it may be as simple as getting a dog, making a new friend. So my dear friend Patricia sent me a wonderful video, which I did not put on your, I'll see if I can pull it up, about what you put out is what you get back. So this is called in certain circles the law of attraction or karma. And it works. Try it. Try it. Give someone a compliment for no reason. Find something nice and go. I've started doing that with people in restaurants. These ladies dress up on Sunday morning, they go to church, then they go out to breakfast, and they look so nice. I just walk over to them and say, wow, you look great today. Thanks for dressing up. You dress the place up. And they just beam, and that makes their day. Or, a homeless person in the cold. I go to Wawa in the morning and get my coffee. I'll buy him a cup of chicken soup. Just gratuitous kindness. There's nothing better. And it benefits you. So donating blood can take out toxic levels of iron from your body that build up because you're not losing it with menstrual blood every month. Especially for women on testosterone replacement, it's a wonderful thing to go and donate blood 2 or 3 times a year. It's quite amazing. So you don't have to do that. You can give your neighbor some onions that you grew in your yard.
Or go pet a dog.
Go pet somebody else's dog. I carry little doggy treats in my pocket because I love seducing other people's dogs. And they're so easy to seduce. It's really, if the owner lets you, because, everybody's suspicious these days. But an old lady with a pocket full of dog treats, how bad can that be? But that, it gives me such a good feeling. And then I carry that all week. So, okay. Any questions?
I just wanted to say that this morning I posted on Facebook and on my website, and on Constant Contact, a writing called The Flash of Insight,
Okay, so
which is exactly what you are talking about right now.
perfect. So Miss Patricia is pointing us to, what is it, a podcast or a posting?
It's on my Facebook page,
Oh, it's on her Facebook.
and it's also on,
It's
it's
called
called A Flash of Insight.
a Flash of Insight.
Right, and,
Okay.
and it was about the fact that I was starting to get tired of taking care of my body, and that it felt tiresome. And then the writing proceeded to say that thank God for your body and that you take care of it, because it's how your spirit and your soul gets to live here doing the work you came to do.
That's
And without that healthy body, you wouldn't be here to do it.
Exactly.
And so it proceeded to then say ways of keeping your body healthy, which are say hello to the clerk at Publix and use her name.
That's right, exactly. They wear their name. If you use their name, it's such a gift. I see you is what it says. I see you. So it's so easy to do.
Yes.
You don't always get back, you know. Maybe she's got things in her ears. She doesn't even hear you, or she's busy thinking about something else. But you know, it doesn't hurt. Costs nothing. So thank you for that. So
And you get an instant response because it makes you feel so good in the moment. It doesn't matter what happens on the other side. It happens
That's
inside of you.
that's right. That's right. Hold the door for somebody. Watch men if you hold the door for them. They don't know how to act. It's very funny. They get all flustered. I'm supposed to do that for you. Hey, today is your turn. Today for you, tomorrow for me is what the shamans say, which is beautiful. And don't let the media carry you away into outrage or into fear. Those are, I think, the most common toxic feelings that are going around today. People are outraged at what's going on in the world, or they're terrified of what's coming. And one day I sat down in meditation and I asked God, what can I do about this world situation? And it's so awful, it's so scary, it's so overwhelming. And the answer was, serve the one before you. Forget about that. The rest of it is my job. Your job is what you came here to do. Don't forget your primary mission, as they say in the military. And your job is to bring joy and to bring healing and to bring light. And that's what you will get back. So try it. Take a chance and talk to a stranger. That's how we fix things here. All right, let's see. So then other treatments for the physical toxins, I just want to mention. Chelation therapy, either IV or oral. Sweating. Sweating. You can buy a sauna, you can go to a gym that has a sauna, or you can go out in the sun. And I know everybody's terrified of skin cancer. So make sure you dose properly. If you're a really white person, then you don't need as much sun to get the benefit. You don't want to burn. You don't want to get lobster, but you want to increase your melanin in your skin. It looks great. That's why we all want a tan. And it's very healthy, and it indicates that you're making lots of vitamin D, which is of benefit. After you've gotten your dose, whether it's 10 minutes, whether it's 20 minutes, probably not much more than that for most of the people in this room. The darker you are, the more you can handle. But then put on your hat, put on your sleeve shirt, and don't be afraid. Be out there. Yeah.
What about grounding and earthing?
Okay, so there you go. I didn't think of that. So sunlight and red light therapy are incredibly energizing. your mitochondria metabolize light. And 40% of sunlight is in the red zone. So of course sunlight is the perfect light for us. Not fluorescent lights, not LEDs, not night lights at all. So be careful and dose accordingly. EMFs, electromagnetic fields, are more or less of a problem for some people. Some people are extremely sensitive to them, and they can only live in the deep woods, or they have to put a Faraday cage around their room and live in there. Make sure your router is not on the other side of the wall from your bed. So you can get for cheap a little monitor that will tell you where the electromagnetic fields are in your house. And when you put your phone up to it, it goes nuts. So what do you think happens when you put your phone up next to your head? You're asking for a brain tumor. And brain cancers are on the rise. So let's not go there. Electromagnetic fields are toxins. And this 5G is worse than 4G or 3G. Yes, Patricia.
We have an X49 patch that creates a Faraday cage around you, and that Faraday cage is what deflects all EMF, whether it's on your phone, whether it's on a cell tower. I live in Sarasota, I live in Venice, and they are contemplating putting right on our property, they're getting permission to do it, and we all signed all kinds of petitions to stop it. But they want to put a cell tower right on the edge of our property, which is going to be a huge amount of EMF. So thank God I wear the X49, but what about all my neighbors?
Yeah, no, it's clear that they don't care, that they haven't done the research. But there was a guy, I can't remember his name, but he was out of Sarasota, who was hired by the electric company to prove that it was safe.
Oh.
And he wound up writing a book about how unsafe it is. So EMFs are a growing problem. So don't put those Bluetooth things in your ears. Use the wires and put your phone as far away from you as comfortable. It's not really your friend. Okay, so we've talked about all the boring stuff and a little bit of the exciting stuff. And now I want to talk to you about what really jazzed me when I found out about it. So it's called homotoxicology. Homotoxicology. So homo refers to homeopathy. So this is a big misunderstood word that doesn't mean holistic. It doesn't mean integrative. It doesn't mean what I do as a medical practitioner. I call it holistic, what I do. Homeopathy is a branch of medicine that was created in the late 1800s by a physician by the name of Samuel Hahnemann. Hahnemann was a German, and he discovered that taking natural substances that caused certain symptoms in their in a full dose will eliminate and attenuate those same symptoms in a diluted form. So the key to homeopathy is dilution repeatedly, over and over and over again. Many of you know those little blue and white tubes in the health food stores. It looks like a rack of lipsticks, but they all look the same and they have different Latin names. These are homeopathic remedies. They're fantastic for self-care. So what they are, so for example, arsenic is a homeopathic remedy. It's called Arsenicum album. So if somebody takes arsenic, knowingly or not knowingly, in not the tiny doses that we're exposed to every day that don't cause symptoms until they build up, if you're given a full dose of arsenic, you will develop terrible diarrhea, among other things. So arsenicum, as a homeopathic remedy, is a great emergency medicine for Montezuma's revenge. If you go traveling and you pick up something, I used to take it with me as a doctor. I have a little kit that I use as an emergency travel kit. So arsenicum 30C or 100C. So the number after the name refers to how many times it's been diluted. So if anything over 6, there's not one molecule left of the original product, the original remedy. And so what is causing the change? It's the energetic imprint of that remedy. So it's kind of like, think of a reflecting pond. You've got the trees up here, and you've got the trees that are reflecting, and they cancel each other out. So you have no symptoms at the end. And that's kind of the way I like to think about it. So homotoxicology recognizes that there is a progression of disease. There is from mild symptoms all the way up to neoplastic disease, cancer. And I'm going to go through this system with you because it is so clever. The real key here is that up to a certain point, you can reverse the process. You can roll it back by using homeopathic remedies, but not just that, by changing your lifestyle, by recognizing what it is that's happening. So this is not the only way to do it, but this model came out of Dr. Reckeweg in 1948-49. So it's not that far off from, some of us were born back then. And some of us were already on the planet. And many of us were not. So this may be totally new. When the Flexner report came out in 1913, it signaled the end of natural medicine. And over time, because the Flexner report, commissioned by the Rockefeller Institute, which owns all the petroleum, and therefore all the pharmaceuticals that come from petroleum, ran the homeopaths out of the country. So Dr. Hahnemann has a medical school named after him in Philadelphia. It's still named after him, but they know nothing about homeopathy.
What's the spelling of that Flexner?
Flexner, Flexner. That was Abraham Flexner, was a PhD, not a doctor, who was hired by the Rockefeller Institute to make scientific medical practice. So scientific meant that only those companies who could afford to do these crazy expensive double-blind prospective controlled studies could be validated. And now we know that those studies can be faked, can be, altered, and the ones that don't say the right thing can be deep-sixed forever and never see the light of day. So we're not getting a balanced view, and neither are the doctors. The drug companies own medical education. That's why the doctors don't know anything about nutrition.
I worked in a doctor's office for a while. The drug reps used to come through the door bringing all kinds of gifts, lunch, you name it, they brought it to influence the doctors.
Of course they did. And they were always cute little, perky little, short-skirted, and it's very deliberately targeted, and it's a campaign, and it's, They used to be able to do more. I'm sure they still do, you know, inviting them to the box at the Super Bowl, taking their kids to Little League, or they knew who played with who. They knew what doctors were friends with which ones, and which ones are the best prescribers. And so they would reward them in some way, and I'm sure that still happens. I was never involved in that, as you can well imagine.
In Germany, they try very hard to say homeopathy is not working.
Of course.
It was very, and now they try it very hard, you know.
Yes, sadly, they are trying to run the homeopaths out of everywhere. So I was in India a couple times, and I went to see what a hospital was like in India. One side of the hospital has conventional medicine as we practice it here, and the other side has Ayurvedic medicine and homeopathy, and they're just as respected as the other. In fact, most people get both. Europe still uses homeopathy, but you know, the medical profession has a really strong union, and so, and a very good marketing arm, and so most Americans never think of an alternative to going to the doctor and getting a prescription. And if they go to the doctor and they don't get a prescription, they feel cheated. So don't be one of those people. Homeopathy works. You can buy a book, a little book that'll just get you started. And you can, if you feel yourself getting sick, you take a little homeopathic aconite. Aconite will cut anything at the root. Arnica is great for pain, for trauma, for brain injury, for so many things. Should be part of everybody's little kit. So anyway, so Recueg put together this progression of disease. So I'm just going to go through it for one organ system. You'll get the idea. So we start with the humoral phases. They have their own language, their own kind of quirky and archaic terminology for things, but you can learn this. The humoral phases are outside of the cell. So they're in the blood, they're in the extracellular fluid. And number one comes the excretion phase. So the excretion phase is when you first encounter a toxin. So what do? You sneeze, you get rhinorrhea, you get a lot of, expelling of fluid. You're trying to get rid of the toxin or the virus or whatever it is that's attacking you. But it's in the very earliest stages. So in terms of skin, it would be sweating a lot. In terms of the nasal, it would be rhinorrhea, constant dripping, drainage, and efforts to get rid of it. In the chest, it would be coughing and expectoration. So that's the very first phase. The second phase is a little deeper and a little worse. So in the skin, it's acne. With the head, it's conjunctivitis, or it's middle ear infection, or it's sinus congestion, acute bronchitis in the chest. So then the third phase and the fourth phase are called the matrix phases, where it starts to really get into the tissue. And so you will have moles growing, or nevi, we call them, on the skin, that are less transient than acne. The pimples come and go, but moles will stay, and they can turn into worse things. Let's see. Yeah, so then we get growths starting, benign growths in the ear, for example, cholesteatoma. chalazion on the eye. It's a membrane that grows over the eye. It's an effort for the body to protect itself. All of these are protective devices, but they just get, as the toxin goes deeper, the reaction gets less targeted and more toxic. So then we get to the impregnation phase, which would look like allergy, which would look like polyps in the nose. So now you're starting to grow things. Let's see, where is that? Then you can't smell. Then you can't breathe right. In the lung, it would be COPD. It would be emphysema and bronchiectasis. So then we've got excretion phase, inflammation phase, deposition phase, impregnation phase. So in the gut, that would look like, start as heartburn, it would then turn into gastritis. So in the inflammation phase, it's all the words ending in itis, which means inflammation. Then degeneration in the GI system looks like hyperplastic or hyperplastic gastritis at this phase. And then malabsorption and chronic gastritis in the impregnation phase. And then finally, when the toxicity gets actually into the cell, those are called the cellular phases. There are two. And that looks like scleroderma, which is an autoimmune disorder of the skin, or macular degeneration, or anosmia, inability to smell, emphysema. And then finally, the last phase, and the worst part of the cellular phases, is when de-differentiation occurs, which means the cell no longer remembers its function, and it turns into a cancer cell. So here we are. We have lots of warnings. We have lots of stages where we can intervene. We can turn this train around. We can change things. We can stop smoking. We can stop using non-organic foods. We can do all the things that we've been talking about to cleanse ourselves and to turn it around. You can go backwards. But no, if you do, you will go through all the phases in the reverse order. So it's not like your old disease is coming back. It's like you're reversing the trend and you're going in the right direction. So I'm going to stop here. It's a lot to swallow, but I think you'll see what an exciting model it is. It gives you back control. You can read your body at any stage, and you can make it better. So, questions?
I call what you just said retracing.
Okay.
And a lot of people will throw the baby out with the bathwater and say, oh my God, this isn't working, but all that's happening is what you just said. They're retracing some of the old symptoms so that they can flush them out.
There you go. So for the listening audience, Patricia offered, she calls it retracing, and that's a perfect analogy. You are going backwards, and you can know that you're getting better because your old symptoms are coming back. And you're not continuing down the path of further and further toxicity. So that's the good news. And that's the little intellectual nugget that I want you to have. So,
Perhaps your painting will spur some more questions.
So let me have that.
What do you want?
I stuck it in.
No, I've got it over here. Ready
Oh,
to put it.
she moved it, of course.
Of
So
course.
I showed you this last time on my phone, and now I actually have. Go ahead. It needs a backing. So it just says it like I feel it. Yeah, good.
And the title is?
The Art of Medicine Under Attack. So let's put this on there too. The Art of Medicine is Under Attack from, oops, okay, rotate your phone, Diane. It doesn't like me. You can do that. I got it.
And who's it under attack by?
By Big Pharma, the vulture, by the standard of care, which means everybody's treated the same, no matter if you're a 90-year-old grandmother or a 300-pound linebacker. You get the same drug at the same dose. Come on, common sense. Or the FDA, which is not on your side.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah, they want to see it too. So I've had doctors ask me for copies, and I'm thrilled. So I made some up, and I'll be bringing other of my artwork and putting it up on my website, which is bestmedicine.us. Bestmedicine.us.
So I had to go out for a little bit, but I wonder if you talked about the slippery slope with medicines, with pharmaceuticals.
I really didn't touch on that very much, but that's a good point.
It's something we hear so much about from all of the people who come here. But you know how they automatically, the standard of care is if somebody comes in and they're 40 years old or older, they probably need a statin, and you're remiss if you don't give them one. Even if they don't fill it, you have to give them a script. You know, and then it goes, and then that is going to affect so many things in your body that your blood pressure is going to go up, and then other things are going to happen, and then you got to take another medicine, and, you know, down the line, instead of being trained and encouraging natural means, both by lifestyle choices and nutritional interventions. Your subject, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, so drugs are chemicals. They need to be detoxified. And that's a strain on your liver. Not to mention, I own a book called Nutrient Deficiencies, Drug-Induced Nutrient Deficiencies. So you need to know, when you're taking a drug that blocks your stomach acid, you can't absorb minerals. You can't break down proteins. You will become progressively weaker and more frail and more fragile, and your brain won't work as well. So it's a setup. So are the statins. They directly affect your energy generators, the mitochondria, and if you're not taking coenzyme Q10, you're in trouble. Even if you do, you may not be absorbing it for multiple reasons. So there are other ways to reduce cholesterol. There are other ways to treat the stomach besides blocking its action and sabotaging digestion, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And Susie's right, it's a slippery slope because they will give you more drugs for the symptoms of the drugs that you're on. And pretty soon you're on 15 different meds, and you can't walk, and you can't get out of your chair because you don't have any energy and you don't know why. And you think it's normal because all your friends are the same way.
And in defense of the doctors, it's not about them not caring or them not wanting to do their best for you or everybody else, but we really are talking about the standard of care and Big Pharma's investment in all the medical schools, expecting a very good return on their investment.
Indeed.
Yeah.
What's the third thing you had there? You had standard of care?
FDA.
F-O.
The FDA and Big Pharma.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so tell us what you really think, right?
Yeah. You know how many of if you take a look, if you go to drugs.com or there's some other places you can go, if you are taking a medication or somebody you love is, and you look at it, it might have 2 or 3 different different food dyes in it. For what reason? You know, why do they have to put a neurotoxin in there? Like, just nothing at all. So I don't know why they do all that, but
They have their reasons. They don't really want to kill you,
No.
but they don't want to cure you either because they lose a customer either way. So know that. I know this audience is well aware. And maybe some of you in La La Land.
I just came from my annual doctor's right before I came.
Got it.
And she says, your liver is 1 point something over whatever the box that you're doing. And I said, well, what does that mean? She kind of really answered me, and then it was cholesterol. So it's like, I said, I just told her, I'm not taking cholesterol medicine, so I guess I need to find something good, natural.
Yeah, so naturally, cholesterol goes up after menopause. Why do you think? Because the liver's trying to give the ovaries the raw material to make hormones. But the ovaries aren't answering. So the liver just makes more and more and more.
Wow.
The other reason is low thyroid function.
Okay.
Iodine. Back to the iodine. I'm a broken record.
Yeah.
If I get every one of you to take iodine and tell all your friends and neighbors,
Is
I've done something good.
liquid or pills?
It doesn't matter. Just take it. I mean, it matters, but just start with something.
Okay.
These days, I'm preferring the 12.5 milligram pill every day.
Okay.
And if you have cancer, you could take 50 milligrams.
That's iodine?
Iodine. Iodine/iodide. Has to be both.
Together, yeah.
Different organs need different forms.
Dr. Brownstein, I watched with Dr. Brooks, and that was
did you?
fabulous.
It
wasn't
was.
But she published it again, and she printed the whole thing on, so people can go and look at it.
So Dr.
Just
Lindsay,
saying about-
drlindsayberkson.com.
Agile mind.
Agile Thinkers.
Agile thinking, yeah.
Agile Thinking. And she has tons and tons of wonderful information. And she's a very good friend of mine. So when she comes to town, I'm going to invite her to do a class with me. And I'm also inviting her to come live in Sarasota and practice here.
What's her name?
Lindsay Berkson, Berkson.
Berkson.
Berkson. It's
Pat, did
on
you
your
have a question?
She's there.
Yes.
Doesn't have B-E-R-K.
Yeah, she's right there on your sheet.
Pat, did you have your hand up?
It's on the sheet.
Did you have your hand up? I thought
I was
Oh.
wanting to find out who it was, I didn't hear.
Can you take iodine if you have hair Hashimoto's?
She's here.
Yes, you can. And don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Because they don't understand it. They tell you not to take it. It's crazy because iodine is an essential mineral. And the trouble we have is with the iodine mimics in our diet and in our environment. So iodine is a halogen. It's in a certain stack of the periodic table. And it's in there with fluorine and chlorine and bromine. And fluorine is in the water. Chlorine is in the water. Bromine is in your baked stuff. And my father died really of chronic bromine toxicity because he used to take bromo seltzer every day for headaches. God knows he had enough stress to have headaches, but he would take this bromo seltzer 2-3 times a day. And it turns out, I found out many years later, that it causes valve deformities in the heart. And so when he had his prostate reamed, which also shouldn't happen if you take iodine, he got bacteremia, the bacteria in his blood, and it seeded this deformed valve. And they didn't replace valves in those days. There was no open heart surgery, 1967. And so he was in the hospital for a year on IV antibiotics. And you can just imagine, he was a robust, hearty, healthy man. He just dwindled down to nothing and then he died. So that's what toxicity can do. So I was also listening to a podcast on breast cancer the other day, and I thought it was a brilliant suggestion that we stop using euphemisms, that we start calling things what they are. So a mammogram is a breast x-ray. And you are required, and by your standard of care, to do multiple breast x-rays throughout your life. And remember what a to-do it was when we used to put our feet in the x-ray machine in the shoe store? And then they, oh my God, you can't do that. Why are we radiating the same body part year after year after year? Such a sensitive body part, of course. So if you call it a breast x-ray, maybe it'll make a little more sense in that regard. A mastectomy sounds like, typical surgical procedure. But if you call it a breast amputation,
Wow.
it makes more of a point. There is no reason to rush somebody to the operating room when they have a diagnosis of cancer. You see that this cancer has been a long time coming. And yet when they make that diagnosis, they want to get you in the OR the very next week. So don't let that happen. There is no rush to treat. Find out what your options are. Go ask around. Find out from people who've been there. Find out from doctors who do it differently. So don't let them do things to you.
Yeah,
And
they just suggested today that I needed to go to the breast x-ray.
yes,
And it's been a couple of years, but I don't seem to have any problems.
no, I know, but listen, don't do a breast x-ray first. Do a thermography, a thermogram.
Yeah, right.
Thermography doesn't radiate you. It's not squeezing. It's not popping implants. It's not torture. It's just like taking a photograph with your clothes off.
And where do you go to get that?
So there used to be a lady here in town, and now there's me who doesn't have her thermography camera yet,
Okay.
but I will, I promise you. So put your name on our waiting list, and I'm going to get a thermography camera and someone to do it here. Why not?
Yeah.
It's not a bank breaker. That your insurance won't pay for it. Your doctor won't respect it. But thermography picks up tumors 10 years before they can show up on a mammogram. And then you can watch it regress when you do all your magical things.
And it only costs about $250, so
Yes.
it's not a big deal.
Yes. So the first one is 2 tests 3 months apart, so we can monitor change. And then after that, it's once a year.
We brought someone in here years ago, and we all the staff had a reading of that, and we all stopped using deodorant because it was such a hot spot around our underarm because of the deodorant. So
Yeah,
Which
I'm
is
using
toxic
crystal,
chemicals.
Crystal.
yeah, but something without the aluminum and things in it.
Yeah, I keep telling my kids, or, grandkids, don't use that stuff, don't use that
I
stuff.
want to know what's in that new juvie cream or whatever it's called that supposedly is a total body deodorant. Lumi.
Yeah,
I don't know, if you dip your finger in powder in baking soda and dip it in water, dip it in baking soda and put it on your arm, you won't have any roll down.
There you go. I love that. So for those of you who didn't hear out there in La La Land, baking soda, a little diluted baking soda, and put it under your arm and see what happens. It's really good. It changes the pH, so the same bacteria can't live there. So it's your skin bacteria that causes the odor. So it's not about scrubbing yourself sterile. You want healthy bacteria on your skin, in your sinuses, in your gut, everywhere that bacteria belongs, which is pretty much everywhere in your body. Even the breast has its own microbiome.
I have a question from earlier. She had asked about using a neti pot, and I think can you neti pot with the hydrogen peroxide?
Yeah.
The same way as a nebulizer?
Yeah, you just don't want it so undiluted because it stings.
So is it like 1 part to 5 parts water?
Yeah, 3 to 4 to 5 parts water to 1 part
Salt.
peroxide.
Using salt in your
Salt is not going to kill microbes.
Okay.
Silver will,
My silver colloidal silver?
Yes, silver and
Put that in
iodine
it?
will.
In the neti pot?
Sure.
You mentioned something else along with that? Colloidal silver and something else?
Iodine.
Iodine, okay.
That would be liquid iodine. Just a drop or two.
Where do you get your colloidal silver?
I use the company Argentin. They carry it here.
Oh, you carry it here?
We
Yeah,
brought in
the
every
full
book Carol
spectrum
asked
does.
us to bring in for
Yeah.
every book. Yeah.
So you should be able to find most everything here.
Okay.
And everything here is vetted very carefully.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
We take it ourselves. We only want
no,
pure, clean, and well formulated.
yeah.
So there's a reading list there. There'll be an exam next time. And I pulled some books off the shelf here because there are tons of resources right here. I think we should make a lending library, don't you?
Well, when somebody asks, we usually lend them one.
So
We
here's
write
a,
it down and keep track of our books.
yeah, I mean, you have to be respectful. But here's one that's from 1974, I believe.
Yeah, she's
It's
got some
still-
old books. This is only
Tissue.
half of Eve's library. The other half's at her house.
Okay, so tissue cleansing through bowel management.
Yeah.
You know, bowel management. Again, a little dated, but it's still very valid. Bernard Jensen is a chiropractor, PhD nutritionist. So that's this one. What's this? How to Get Well. And this is, I think, a 1949 book. No, this one's 74. This is old. Statin drugs, side effects. Very important. This fellow was a NASA physician, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. Smart guy. He started taking statins, and he would have episodes of what's called global amnesia, where he completely lost where he was. He didn't know his house. He didn't know his name. He didn't know anything. And he thought, my God, this is scary. He went off the statin, it didn't happen again. Then he went back on his doctors say so, and it happened. So he wrote this book. Here's a little book about the scientific basis of EDTA chelation therapy.
Oh.
If you're really interested, there's also a textbook of EDTA chelation, but this is enough for you to really feel comfortable with what's going on. Chelation is a process that happens in the soil. The soil bacteria break down rock and marry it to an amino acid, an organic chemical that the plant roots can absorb. So that's how minerals get absorbed into the food supply. Then we eat the plants and we get those minerals. So how cool is that?
Which is really funny when you think about the whole vegan way of eating, because the plants aren't vegan.
That's funny.
But they are enormously interactive and dependent. So the mushroom mycelia in the soil are also a means of communication from tree to tree, of sharing nutrients, of porting things from one part of the garden to another. And the whole earth is a garden, except, of course, where we've paved it with asphalt. So I have high hopes that very soon we'll be flying around in private drones, and we can get rid of our roads. We can pull up the asphalt and reclaim all of those, how many millions of square miles of potentially productive, healthy soil, but it's going to take a while.
And start grounding.
Start grounding. Yeah, so grounding is an energetic thing where your electricity needs to flow into the ground. Otherwise, you feel anxious all the time. You feel disconnected because you are. So take off your shoes and go walk on the beach or walk on the grass or in the dirt.
Or in the salt water at the beach.
Yes.
That's perfect.
Yes, of course, it's perfect for us. We're part of this ecosystem. So this is Lindsay's book that was put out in the 70s. She was one of the very first to write about these hormone disrupting chemicals. Right. And this is my book, which I just put up for
That's a wonderful book.
people. Thank you. And I'm going to give it to the lady who asked the most questions today, which is you. So maybe you'll have some answers next time. Yes,
I just have a question. Flax seed is good for us, right?
to a degree, but it's also seed oil. There are very good things about it, but there's still linoleic acid.
I just saw the other day when I was looking at oils, my olive oil, the flaxseed oil, oh, great for cooking, blah, blah, blah. And I go, well, I know flaxseed is good for us, but seed oils aren't.
No.
So, no.
No, but you can do it in moderation. If you grind up fresh flax seeds, you don't want them ground already, because those oils, when they get in contact with the air, become rancid. So you want to grind them fresh, and then you can put them in your whatever, your smoothie, or just eat them just like that, or sprinkle them on something. And they won't hurt you if it's just a small amount. And again, variety. So I like hemp seeds. I love hemp seeds and chia seeds. But don't use them all at the same time. Go from one to the next, and then leave them out. So again, variety. Don't eat the same foods all the time, and don't take the same supplements or the same nutrients. So I'm going to put that in the book. This course is designed to ultimately become a book. And it's going to be about the rational use of supplements. Because what people are doing today is whatever they read about, whatever their friend recommends, they'll add it, they'll see, and they never stop taking anything. And after a while, they're spending half their day opening and closing bottles. Then they finally get just trash them all and forget about it.
And they are supposed to be supplements. They're supposed to be part of a whole life management of getting your nutrients and having your systems work well, not be something that's like an entire category.
Not supplements, not substitutes. So do the best you can. Recognize it's a minefield. You're going to step on a couple of mines, but you have strategies to mitigate. So homeopathic remedies, the classic one for toxicity is Nux vomica. Nux vomica. Again, they're all Latin names. I don't know the English name for it, but it's some kind of tree nut that makes you throw up if you eat it. But in homeopathic dilution, it helps rid the body of toxins. There is a product here called Drainer that Eve used to use first time on every patient. She loved it like I love iodine. And Drainer is a great place to start helping your liver.
Does that expire? Because I have some.
Homeopathics never expire. Although the FDA requires they require an expiration date, but it's not true.
Yeah.
They can be damaged by X-ray or other things. So, you know,
I
just
bought it from a few years ago, and I'm like, I wonder if this is still good.
If it was in a drawer, it's still fine.
Okay.
yeah.
Is that like 6 drops? Is it 6
The
drops?
Drainer, yeah. She used to say that it would, if the building was on fire and she could only take one product, it'd be Drainer.
It would be what?
Drainer, what she's talking about.
Drainer, the
The
homeopathic
It's a
remedy
little
for your
homeopathic
liver.
remedy. She would say that it's not actually going to make you
No, it's not.
detoxify.
It's got an eyedropper.
It's going to say to your kidneys, wake up, and take out the trash. Just wake up, take out the trash.
You get it here.
For kidneys?
Drainer, D-R-A-I-N-E-R?
Yeah.
Correct.
I don't think they sell this anywhere.
No,
There's another product similar. It's called Drainage.
well, that was a
Drainage.
private label of Drainer.
Oh, okay.
Right
So-
on the table, see that?
Yeah.
You said that's for the liver or kidney?
It's,
For
well,
both?
it tells the kidneys, wake up and take out the trash, because all those toxins that are fat soluble, you know, if they go around and around in the blood, then the kidneys can't get rid of it, like it goes out in, then it just kind of gets numb and goes to sleep. You know, and so it's just like, wake up, stay awake, take out the trash.
But it does help the liver?
Yes,
And
yeah. They're
Is it-
all one big system, yeah.
Is it good for kidney failure? I have kidney failure, but is there?
It
good for
won't
me?
hurt. It
Okay,
will
no,
not hurt.
Anything good
So
for kidneys,
homeopathics are very, very, and in fact, in one of these books I was just noticing, they have a chapter on kidney disease. So you might want to take a look
I
at
invite
that.
anybody to come and sit in the library and read books as long as they like. But,
Yeah.
no.
Okay. So next month we will be at the Unity Church on Proctor Road, same time, and with a little basket in the back of the room for the doggies. And I'm inviting those of you who are watching on Facebook to come and see me in person. I really like that. I like that you're watching anyway. And we're going to be putting up all of these on my website and little clips here and there on social media, which I'm not responsible for. So I'm not sure. We're probably YouTube and maybe Instagram. I don't know. Facebook. Yes.
Do you know the topic for next month?
The topic for next month is brain health. And the topic for the month after is longevity, healthy longevity. And the month after that will be just Q&A, question and answer. I'll probably bring some other topic then, depending what I was just listening to.
Did you recommend any certain tests for heavy metals testing?
We talked about chelation
Yeah, the chelation
challenge
test.
tests and hair now.
I know one thing, we used to look at it like there's different things, but nothing's too high. But then I remember like about 6 years ago, Eve saying now they realize that they're all cumulative. You have to add all those different amounts together for your toxic load and what your body's reacting to. So it's not like I've got one thing that's horrible. It's like wanting to get rid of all of them. Or
Right.
reduce them.
Right. So it can be high because you ate a lot of shrimp or a lot of toxified fish that month, and not the rest of the time. But if you've got fillings in your teeth, amalgam fillings are 50% mercury, and you're constantly rubbing off this mercury and swallowing it. They did an experiment where they took female sheep, ewes, and they drilled their teeth and they put amalgam fillings in there. And then they tested the lambs, and the lambs had mercury. So it can be transmitted that way too. So that's a way to, prevent problems is for young women who are not pregnant yet to detoxify before that happens. Otherwise, the baby becomes the toxic sink. So let's be aware of that, all you young ladies. Yes.
Is there anything you can recommend to take to equalize your fillings?
Get rid of that.
I know.
My teeth will fall apart.
My first year working for Eve, I went and had all of them taken out and porcelain ones put in. You'd think they were painting something of Michelangelo's, the way they do the room in plastic and don't get near anything. That's how toxic it is, and they know it in the dentist office. But they were putting it on teeth.
You have no idea. I've treated dentists too, and they are super toxic because they don't know this protocol to protect themselves as well as the patient. So you need a dentist who does the proper technique for removal. So you want to look for a holistic or toxin-free dentist. They'll call themselves something different. And that's really important. Root canals are another source of toxicity. So sadly, who knew? But, we all got drilled in our youth, and whether we needed it or not. And then we have to go and get them taken out carefully in the right way, or you have a huge exposure. So, yeah.
I just want to say we are consumers like you at Full Spectrum now, and so trying to help you, trying to source for ourselves the best way we can for practitioners, of course, and as well as food and everything else. So if you ever have any questions, we'd like to be a resource to help.
So Full Spectrum's phone number is 941.
There's cards on the way out.
I know, but these people don't have access.
They're friends with us on Facebook.
They have.
They have the number.
94, yeah, they don't.
Okay, so my number then is 941-404-8030, and the website is bestmedicine.us.
And it's such a, we all want to use the insurance that we have, of course, but to use the insurance and go that way without having a sane, common sense, well-trained, understanding the human systems and how they work, practitioner to also help would really kind of be crazy. So we're so happy that Carol's back here again.
Well, this system is an illness care system.
Mm-hmm.
My system is a prevention and roll it back system. So take your choice.
And be very careful when you do go to Western medicine doctors who are strictly into all of that. Because I recently had a situation where I got discharged from my gynecologist because of the fact that I said I didn't want to have surgery. I wanted an alternative. And we had done testing and found out that my endometrial lining was that of a 45-year-old woman instead of that of an 84-year-old woman, which I am.
Wow.
And she
Look
said,
at her.
Yeah, I know.
Who would believe that?
and she said, Patricia, we have to take it all out. And I said, I'm not taking anything out. You just did tests 2 months ago that said a biopsy that said everything was fine. So why would I do it now? And I told her that I was wearing stem cell activation patches, and that could very well be the reason why my endometrial lining had been rejuvenated, that it was better. And she, God bless her, I love her, but I release her. Because she said, well, if you're not, she said, I'm the expert here. And it made me think of you. Because you warned me about doctors who think they're the expert and won't listen to you. And so she said, I'm releasing you from my practice.
Yeah.
Sadly.
Isn't that some?
They do that now. If you don't go along. My daughter had a cut on her knee because she fell down like a scrape like kids do. And they gave her antibiotics for 2 weeks. And I didn't give them to her. And the doctor said, listen, I'm the doctor. I said, but I gave her a bacitracin and a Band-Aid.
Yeah.
And she's fine, so she discharged my daughter from her care.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
But
It's
this is good
abusive.
because doctors are being challenged.
Yeah, they are.
That means they're going to have to do something in order to protect themselves from people like us.
No,
Well, you people are
They'll
dangerous.
dismiss us because it's much more dangerous to them to get banned by those systems. They'll just dismiss us.
All right, so I'm going to turn this off now.
They always picked them.
Oh, that's why this is Mr.
If you all wouldn't
Thank
mind
you.
not taking the toxin handouts with